told me before the Indians started this hellacious road trip in the Central Division after the All-Star break by taking 3 out of 4 in Detroit was going to happen, I'd be honest with you, I would have told you you're nuts. But I'll take it. Hello everybody and welcome to the Cleveland Sports Report. My name is Nick Brolis. I am your host. My Twitter handle is at the bottom of your screen as usual at mbrolis, and my email of course is nickbrolis8404@yahoo.com. And of course, we're going to start right off with some baseball talk as the Indians fell today by a final score of 5-1 up in the Motor City. But as I just told you a second ago, took 3 out of 4 from the Detroit Tigers, who, might I add, I still say are going to win the AL Central Division. And why I say that is because the Indians, and I was just telling my friend Justice over the weekend at a Cafe 80 show, might I add, that although we're kind of like the Millennium Force roller coaster at Cedar Point. We go up and down, up and down, up and down. And we're going so fast. And my worry is this. We are just not consistent enough at doing the good stuff enough. Which is why maybe some of you are thinking, well, after we take 3 out of 4 from Detroit, we're right back in the hunt. Which technically, mathematically, yes. We are right back in the hunt for the first place in the Central Division. But we don't do enough of what we did over the weekend in Detroit consistently enough. We don't get consistent enough pitching. We don't get good enough hitting consistently enough. And that's why I still am zeroed in on that second wild card spot, much like what we were last year. So, we have an upcoming series up in Minnesota, which, despite their record, folks, don't kid yourself. It's going to be a tough time to get wins up in Minnesota. We've never had the greatest of times up in Minnesota, despite I think we swept, there was 3 or 4 games up in Minnesota last year at the end of the season just to get that second wild card spot. And then we go to Kansas City against the Royals. And for me, 90-degree weather for all the series, it's going to feel a lot like summer again. So, here's what I have from my take this past week for the Indians so far, which, again, only having the one series up in Detroit. The pitching was great. It was absolutely phenomenal, except for Josh Tomlin in the final game. And the hitting, it got better. But again, can we have this good hitting consistently? I don't think we can. Still eye that second wild card spot, which we're only 2.5 games back of Seattle, which is phenomenal. That leads me to the standings for Major League Baseball. And as of right now, over in the East, you have the Orioles, 3.5 games up on the Yankees, followed by the Blue Jays, the Tampa Bay Rays, and Boston. And over here in the Central, Chicago's still 5.5 games up on us, followed by the Royals at 48 and 49, and then the White Sox are at 47 and 52, followed by the Twins are in last place with a record of 44 and 53. And over in that West, the A's are 1.5 games up on the Angels, and Seattle's in third place with a record of 52 and 45. The Astros are at 41 and 58, followed by the Rangers at 39 and 59. Over in the National League, you have the Nationals in first place over in the East with a record of 53 and 43. And then you have the Braves at 54 and 44. The Mets are at 46 and 51, followed by the Marlins and the Phillies. Over in the Central, in first place, you have the Cardinals at 54 and 44, followed by the Brewers, Pirates, Reds, and the Cubs are in last place with a record of 40 and 56. And over in that West, the 2-team race between the Giants and the Dodgers, and then you have the big drop-off of 11.5 games back are the Padres, followed by the Diamondbacks and the Rockies. I tell you what, these races, some of these races are just incredible. You got the Central over in the National League, just absolutely nuts. I mean, the Cubs, they're off in oblivion somewhere, but the Reds are only 3 games back of the Cardinals. That's amazing to me. And again, that AL East. I mean, granted, the Red Sox are in last place, but they're only 8 games back. That's outstanding. So, there's your look at the Major League Baseball standings. Switching to the NFL, training camp begins this Thursday out in Berea for the Cleveland Browns. And of course, my buddy Jim Donovan and all the guys over at Sports Time Ohio, starting this Saturday, we'll be having the start of all the training camp programming for the Browns, starting at 10:30 with Training Camp Daily over on Sports Time Ohio. And that airs this Saturday. And don't forget, if you still want to get out to training camp, Browns fans, you have to register at Browns.com. And for those of you that have not registered for Family Day, Saturday, August 2nd, at Infocision Stadium, forget about it. I couldn't even register in time for this because it's officially sold out. 25,000 at Infocision Stadium. The Browns sold out in less than an hour for that event. And the first preseason game will be up in Detroit for the Great Lakes Classic. I still don't understand why we have to give a nickname to a preseason game. It is the August the 9th, and of course I had to touch on this. I wanted to touch on this because I've had numerous people ask me about Johnny Manziel. Okay, I do not condone what he does off the field right now. I'm not saying what he does off the field right now is okay. But let me ask all of you this question. And again, I've gotten much feedback about this even before I've asked this question. What is he doing to any of us? Is he really hurting anybody? He has not gotten into any crazy trouble, such as a Josh Gordon. Plaxico Burress a couple years ago when he shot himself in the foot at a nightclub. He, from what I know, has not been charged with any sort of rape charges. Can't say the same about a certain quarterback over in Pittsburgh. He's not killed anybody, like a former Browns wide receiver, Dante Stallworth, down in Florida. He has not gotten into any serious trouble. Yes, he's had people taking pictures of him on swans in pools. He's gotten pictures taken of him with a lot of different things. Again, I'm not saying he can act this way once football season starts. But he's got until this Thursday to do whatever he wants to do. And again, he's not hurt anybody. So, and I know some of you are calling for him to be a bust, which is your opinion. That's fine. And for the record, I'm saying right now, yeah, he has a lot to prove to me. Because when the draft was coming up, I probably said it here on the CSR before. I don't know if he's going to make it with his reckless style of play. He's got to prove to me that he's not always going to abort out of the pocket right off the bat when he feels like he's going to get tackled. So, yeah, he has to prove to me that he's going to have what it takes to become an NFL quarterback and a starter. Because you don't draft somebody in the first round to just be a backup. You don't do that the first 3 rounds. Heck, you don't do that up to the 5th round. Some of these players are drafted later in the rounds just so they're kind of a security blanket. But you don't get drafted that early in the draft to be just some bust. So with that being said, from a competitive athletic standpoint, Johnny Manziel has to prove to me that he's going to be able to be a starter in the NFL. Do I love his competitiveness? Absolutely. Is he one of the more accurate passers to come out of college? Absolutely. But I really hope that he can avoid causing a train wreck, so to speak, with him amongst himself and all these tacklers down on the field. But getting back to what I first started about, some of you have said he can't act like this during football season. And I agree with you. None of this nonsense can go on as of Thursday. And in my opinion, I don't know if he's, how much he's getting into the playbook. I mean, none of us really do. None of us really know how much he's getting into the playbook right now because none of us are around him. So, with that being said, I really can't give you a good prediction as to what I think he's going to be in the NFL. I hope, for us Browns fans' sake, that yes, I hope that he turns out into an elite quarterback because he's playing for my team. But none of us, I don't think, can accurately say that he's going to be a bad quarterback. He's going to be a bust. Because I've said this to people before, that no one comes into the draft a sure thing. And you can say all you want about Andrew Luck, Robert Griffin, Peyton Manning. I mean, heck, how many people did you hear say that Trent Richardson was going to be a sure thing? And look where he is now. He better hope that he makes the 53-man roster in Indianapolis. Look at Ryan Leaf. I mean, there's a list of names that you can go on and on about that were going into the draft that people said, oh, they're a sure thing. They're definitely going to be a superstar in the NFL. The NFL draft, like every other draft, is a luck of the draw, so to speak. You hope that you draft a player that is going to be productive in the NFL because there's no such thing as a sure fit, 100% guaranteed player that comes in the draft that's going to produce at a high level. And that's just how it is. So, I hope for some of you that I answered your question for me about Johnny Manziel. And if I didn't, feel free to let me know. Be like, you really didn't give me a question. So, that's my opinion on that. Cavaliers additions over the offseason. The offseason, if you will, it's not done in the NBA, but it's come to a halt for the most part. Of course, we added LeBron James. Mike Miller, James Jones came up. And for the draft, of course, we drafted Andrew Wiggins and Joe Harris. But there's still one free agent out there that I'm hoping the Cavs can get, and I'm sure you know who I'm going to say, and that is Ray Allen. His decision was supposed to come down this weekend, but it hasn't. So hopefully, before the middle week edition of Cleveland Sports Report comes to you guys, hopefully he's made a decision by then. And of course, LeBron tweeted out on Twitter earlier this week, what number do you guys think I should wear? 6, 23, 32? I said 23, but who knows? And this edition of the CSR Side Notes to end this edition of the Cleveland Sports is brought to you by my buddy Andy, Barry, Casey, and Dan at Cafe 80s. For those of you that did get out to Cafe 80s over this past weekend, I just want to tell you guys thank you for coming out to Panini's, and then they had another show Saturday night at Nathan's Patio. Both shows were an absolute blast. But again, thank you to all you that came out and decided to enjoy a great show with all of us. And for those of you that still have not made it out to a Cafe 80 show, I really do encourage all you to come out. They have shows at Panini's in North Canton, Nathan's Patio here in Canton. They just go all around for the most part, but those are the two most popular spots. And again, for those of you with smartphones, you know who you are. Get the Bands in Town app and follow Cafe 80s. You can follow them everywhere they're going. Of course, they have their website, thecafe80s.net. And if you're on Facebook, The Cafe 80s, search them. Let them know what you think of them, like them. If you have a song that you love from the 80s that you want them to play for you, let them know. So, that's this edition of CSR Side Notes. The NFL Draft. Now, before I tell you where it's more likely going to be, can you guys remember about 3 months ago when they're talking about how the draft might end up here in Canton? Well, guess what? It's not. The 2015 NFL Draft will take place in either Chicago or Los Angeles. That's what Roger Goodell decided he was going to say. He announced that just the other day. And the Hall of Fame festivities have begun here in Canton. And Sunday, August 3rd at 8 p.m., the Hall of Fame game between the Buffalo Bills and the New York Giants will take place, as that is the start of the NFL season. And of course, I've told you guys before, and guess what? I'm finally going to be able to do it. The middle of August, I'm not sure which week, I will have my 2014 College Football Preview edition of the CSR, as well as an NFL edition of the CSR. But for those of you college football junkies out there, make sure you go out and get this. See that? Hope you guys can see it. That is your Phil Steele College Football Preview magazine. I strongly encourage anybody that absolutely loves college football to go out and get that bad boy, because it has more information in detail about all these college football teams, and that goes for FCS and FBS. And if you really want to know your college football, check it out. Phil Steele also has a website, philsteele.com. I strongly encourage all of you college football fans to go pick it up and take some time to read through it. So, I thank you guys very much for joining me here on this edition of the Cleveland Sports Report. Of course, I will be coming to you with the midweek edition of the Cleveland Sports Report on probably Wednesday or Thursday. But I really thank you guys for joining me on this edition of the Cleveland Sports Report. Have a wonderful week, everybody.